about my journey with depression and my process of healing, how my healing took place in Zanzibar.
Hello again. We are welcoming you to our program Poetcast, the Mshairicast. We are so lucky here to welcome Miss Sakina Taki, who has been writing actually ever since I can say so. Recently here, she has launched her book in Zanzibar, My Little Yellow Book. Today talks in the Poetcast, Mshairicast, is about the book, and of course the meaning behind the book. Of course, that is why we have talked to her, and of course it's also about her himself. Welcome so very much to this program, Miss Taki. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a very pleasant words by you. Thank you so much.
Actually, as I told you in our preparation, that when I heard that a book was launched in Zanzibar and it was about poetry, being a poet myself, of course, I was so astonished and so amazed. I need to see this person. I need to see what was in this book. And fortunately enough that I have ordered my copy, but then I sneaked and I got some copies of the pages. From colleagues there in Zanzibar. So first of all, congratulations for in the world of poetry, we say that you have given birth to another baby. So thank you for this for giving us this baby.
Thank you for the opportunity of getting my voice through to so many people, especially poets and people who are interested in poetry. Poetry is a bit tricky compared to prose, and it's always good to know fellow poets or people who are into poetry. There's a style of writing, there's a creativity attached to poetry, and it's such a pleasure to know that you're actually bringing that out and carrying on the creativity. So kudos to you.
Thank you very much. Now let's start our talk. And in the beginning, actually, I would like, we have talked about it, I would like our listeners and our viewers here to know you before knowing what is there in the book.
Well, I'm born and raised in Nairobi, Kenya, come from a middle-class family. And my interest in poetry actually started when I was in grade 6. My English teacher had given us an assignment to be creative and jot down something in terms of poetry in our English class. So that time I had written a poem based on days of the week. So something for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And she was pretty fascinated by it, by the rhyme, by the way the stanzas were. And I remember her pulling me in front of the class and she was like, you have to recite this poem in front of the classroom. And I think thanks to that encouragement that my teacher provided me, I started writing poetry, and I'd share it with my friends, I'd share it with my family. But unfortunately, my family never believed that I was the one writing the poems. So they thought, she's just copying it out from somewhere. It can't sound so good if Sakina is writing it. So I remember very clearly, I had a friend by the name Halima, and her mom used to work for Nation Media in Nairobi. And Halima one day saw me a bit distressed, and I was telling her how my family just doesn't believe that I'm the one writing poetry. So she took my poem. The poem was called High School, and it was about people in high school and how you shouldn't get into drugs and you should study hard. And she took that poem and got it published in the Young Nation. And, that was a kind of a proof to my family. I remember, running to get the Young Nation and showing it to my family. See, my name is there. It's me. I've written this poem. So since then, my family has also been very encouraging. And as you can see, this book is called My Little Yellow Book. So as a teenager, actually, I had a yellow book where I used to write poetry. And when I went to university, I studied broadcasting and journalism in Malaysia. And when I went to university and I finished uni and I was coming back, I lost my book. And my life without my book just felt very incomplete. I felt very unstable. And during COVID, when I lost my job, I connected with one of my friends who I used to share poetry with, a very good friend of mine, Ahmed Taj, who is now in Dubai. And we were having a conversation, and I was telling him that, I want to start writing again. I mean, it's COVID, things are closed. Then I narrated to him how I miss my yellow book. It had my thoughts, and I just feel so, disconnected without it. And he smiled at me and he said, I have your yellow book. And I realized how life just came together for me when I found my little yellow book, So I decided to write a narration to dedicate poetry to an era in my life without my little yellow book. And hence this book is called My Little Yellow Book.
Now let's go to the Yellow Book itself. The book has been launched in Zanzibar, and of course, what I have seen from social media already. I mean, in the YouTube, I saw the some 3-4 minutes video about the launch, and of course, I saw people talking about the book, at least about how they received the book. Now let's go to the book itself, the Little Yellow Book. The era in which you missed that book by its entirety. But then the question is, what is inside? I mean, what is the book about?
So My Little Yellow Book is actually a dedication to mental health. Now, in 2017, I went through a very traumatic experience in a relationship. And when that relationship ended, I was you know how it is. You're young, you're in love. I was actually married, and I just didn't know what to do. And I remember getting an offer from somebody in Zanzibar to come and do a certain project here. And I didn't think left, right. I just packed my bags and I left. I left Nairobi. And I remember coming to Zanzibar. I'd only been here once or twice for a holiday. And I'm like, I wonder what am I going to do in this island? Okay. I'm like, okay, let me just follow, whatever path is set for me. And I remember spending the first 4 nights next to my office desk because I had no place to stay. And I think Zanzibar was a blessing in my life. I grew personally, I grew emotionally, and I healed. I mean, first and foremost, what I've learned in Zanzibar in terms of culture, and not just the Zanzibari culture, but the African culture, what I've learned about being giving, being human, I learned it from Zanzibar. I remember walking if in the streets of Nairobi, somebody greets you, you run because you're either going to be robbed or you're in danger. And I was so shocked because I remember going home. I used to stay with a very wonderful woman called Fatma Alu. And in Zanzibar, there's a baraza outside everybody's house. Now, in Nairobi, if somebody sat outside my house, I'd call the cops. And I remember walking home and I'm thinking, Fatma, there are people outside your house. And then I was like, it's okay. Anybody can sit on anybody's baraza. And just that warm culture made me realize that humanity still exists. And morning after morning, I went to the beach. I met people. People look down also upon the Muslim culture, saying that women are so enclosed, but come to Zanzibar and you will see women doing yoga on the beach in the morning. Economically, women here are doing so well. They're so hardworking. So it also changed my perspective of how media sometimes brainwashes us towards particular cultures. And I started just appreciating life better. Then I started working at Tamani Foundation, and 10% of the sales of the book is also going towards Tamani Foundation. So Tamani Foundation has villas, beachfront villas, and all the profits that they get, they channel it to a school that they run right at the back. So I went to Tamani Foundation and I was managing their villas, but I was volunteering at their school as well. And it was in Matemwe. I think the most expensive thing you could buy in Matemwe were mangoes. So it made me realize for the first time in my life, I didn't need money. Money didn't matter to me. My focus was on the kids. And these kids who hardly had anything, probably they even come to school without having a meal. so happy, so carefree, and so warm. And this is what healed me. This is where my healing process started. So when I wrote down my little yellow book, I realized that my healing process started in Zanzibar. And furthermore, it continued in Dar es Salaam. So I have always loved Tanzania for some reason. I just didn't know why. And now I know the vibes in this country and on this island. It's something else. It has the power to heal. We just need to understand it.
Healing is the word actually, Sakina, that we want to talk today here. Healing from the redemption of life, healing from the temptation, from sometimes trauma and everything that is happening in our life. And the way that you are explaining the healing in Zanzibar needs some explanation in a way that how does it relate to poetry? I mean, putting all this healing process through poetry. I want to hear that from you. How does it work?
So I remember being in Zanzibar in a state of depression and writing a lot of poetry because as a creative person, if you're an artist, you will draw. If you're, if you're somebody who likes to fidget, you will probably do something. So what I decided to do was write to get my mind off things. But when you're in a state of depression, nothing is ever good. According to you, what you're doing is never good. So I kept throwing my poetry away. Now, for me as a person, I don't know how to express myself well until you give me a paper and a pen. And I mean, Zanzibar, for those of the listeners of yours who don't know, the first woman to ever write a book in Zanzibar was a woman, Princess Salme. And this island is so rich when it comes to culture, when it comes to knowledge. It's phenomenal. The first colored TV was in Zanzibar. Then, after very many years, it went to other parts of Tanzania. When it was still Tanganyika, Zanzibar had a colored TV. So Zanzibar was way advanced. And I think the island still holds so much potential in terms of knowledge. So I think that sort of mingling with the elders of the island, that inspired me to be somebody, to get out of my shell, to discover myself, and to understand that there are no limits in life. And since poetry for me is a weapon, my mom always told me every human being is born with a talent. You just need to discover yours. And when I used to write my poetry, she always used to tell me, this is your talent. This is what God has given you. Use it to your advantage. So when I started writing this book, I realized there are so many people in the situation I was in, depression, people going through symptoms of bipolar, people losing their jobs and not knowing what to do. I'm like, how I was suicidal at a point. And during the launch, we had Brother Shabir Khalfan from Fikr Afia, and he mentioned for every 20 failed suicide attempts, there's one who succeeds. And I was part of that statistic that failed, and I'm lucky. But I never, ever want any other human being to go through that point of, I want to commit suicide, but I failed. It's not a good place to be. And I'm like, how can I use this as a way to get to people, to tell them it's okay, it's fine, you're not okay, it's okay not to be okay. But there's an end to this. Life is a circle. Today is winter, tomorrow's autumn, spring, summer will come, winter will come back. You just have to be stronger for it. And that's why I used this method of writing. Poetry is way more fun to read compared to prose. So I used poetry, and there's poetry which is lighthearted in this book. There's poetry to be appreciated. There's inspirations from poets such as Khalil Gibran. So if you're a poet and you appreciate poetry, you will appreciate the book. If you're somebody who is just looking for a light read, You will enjoy reading about Forodani. You will enjoy reading about Tamani Foundation. If you're somebody who enjoys art, so if you have a look at the book has phenomenal art in it. So you will appreciate the colors, you will appreciate the different colors in the seasons. So there is something for everybody in the book. Furthermore, I use this book as therapy. This book is also a journal. After certain poems, you'll see that there's a place where people can write down their notes. So you write down your thoughts, you write down your notes, and this is a way of letting your feelings out. At the end, there's a frame of gratitude. The frame of gratitude makes you realize that no matter what, there's always somebody there for you. We just take them for granted. Sometimes it's our mom. How many times do you pick your phone and say, thank you, mom, for being there? Or thank your sisters. But they're always there. So this book will tell you you're not alone. You feel this way, but you're not alone. And we are so used to the digital world where we just type things. We need to feel a pen. We need to feel cutting and sticking, because remember, using your hands is therapy. You're pressing your pressure points, and that's what I want people to go back to. There's a need to go back to the basics sometimes. It's therapeutic. Yeah. So that's what the book is going to do.
Fantastic. Before we go to this therapeutic thing which I want very much to learn from you today here in this program, let's go to the book itself. Then you talk about life is about seasons. There is winter, there is spring, there is autumn, there is summer in every life. It is Saka which has got each and everything in one package. It is all inclusive, you can say so in hotel languages. Yes. Can you at least recite for us these seasons that are being appearing that appear in the Little Yellow Book?
The different seasons in the book?
No, I want at least for you to recite some where you speak about seasons.
So I'll just open one randomly.
Yes.
And wow. So luckily I've opened a poem which is in summer, which is called The Land That Heals. And this is about Tanzania. O thy land that heals, I miss your warmth of which my wounded heart sealed. That drive by the ocean, a road I used in deliberation. How I wish to pass once more to admire your natural creation. Your people oh so polite, smiles and laughter. I left my hat amidst your vibrant aura. Without you, I'd be in full disaster. O land that taught me to be and reconnect to the divine, will you always be an arm's length away from me? Can I count on you when I need a sign? O land of great oneness and brotherhood, O land of acceptance and positivity, O my healer, my beloved, I crave to share your peace with my companion. Rejoice once again in your glorious festivities.
MashaAllah. Wow. It is really a summer. It's really a summer. Of course it is.
In a lot of poems, you'll see this theme of reminiscing, because when I wrote the poems, I was in Nairobi in a situation where I had to flash back to how I felt. So a lot of it is reminiscing and missing the place that I was in, that I call home from the heart, which is Tanzania.
Yeah, home from the heart. Actually, yeah, fantastic. Now let's go now to the therapeutic thing. I mean, the way we use poetry as therapy. Tell us more about that. Tell us more about how this poetry. I mean, this poetry book or any other poetry that you bring as a poet. How does it work?
In my opinion, poetry can be used for anything. It's the best way to express. If you want to, if you're a romantic, or if you want to get closer to your partner, recite them a poem, and you will see the emotions that just ooze out. If you ever want to insult somebody, or you want to send a message, write a poem. Or we have kangas very famously in Tanzania. And we know that in the culture, the African culture, you want to send a message to somebody, you wear a kanga. So just putting a message across in a very poetic way, right, is always stronger. And when you're using themes, when you're creating vivid imagery, it's even more deep. When you will see the poems that are written in the winter season in my book, you might not be able to go ahead to read the book. I have gotten some reviews that said, Sakina, I need to stop reading this book for a day just to heal myself from within, because it talks about betrayal. It talks about being mistreated. It talks about being crushed and crumbled. And you need to take a break from it. So poetry and words, in a way, really hit the heart deep. So in a place where first of all, it's very hard for people to express themselves. So I'm blessed to be able to express myself to begin with. And if I can encourage people to express themselves by writing their own thoughts and notes after they have just read and are inspired by a certain poem, that's already therapy. You already know why you are depressed. You already know why are you feeling a certain emotion, because that's where the core is. Until you don't know that you're feeling it and why, you will never be able to heal. So I used poetry as a weapon, and I gathered artists for this book. I have artists who teach art. I have people who just draw for the fun of it. My youngest artist, when she submitted her artwork, was 2.5, 3 years old.
Wow.
So when you will read the book, the colors in the book, the words in the book, the fact that this book is so personal, you won't be able to share it because there is no way you can write your story of betrayal and give it to other people. So it's very, very personal.
Wow.
And I want everybody to write their story, have their little yellow book with them. And that is what's therapeutic.
Wow. Wow.
We are living, Sakina, in the world whereby being crazy from all that is happening to us is just normality now. That is the case whereby even now I cannot describe who is crazy and who is not, because we are all crazy because of what is happening to us. That is it, yeah. And now coming to the healing process, in which each and everyone actually is in the is in need of that healing without knowing that he needs the healing. How do we find out that I am in the point in which now I need a healing?
Everybody throughout your day needs some time for themselves to understand what they're going through. You will not know if you are busy, and this is something, again, I learned when I came to Zanzibar. Sometimes we're just chasing, but we don't know what we're chasing. Where I come from, anybody will say, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. But what are you busy doing? What is your aim of chasing whatever it is that you're chasing, if you are not your own priority? So the first thing I'd emphasize on is take some minutes out of your day for yourself. It could be 5 minutes to just breathe. You wake up early, you wake up at 5, wake up at 4:45. Take 15 minutes and just sit on your bed and just breathe. Sometimes we are so mixed and mingled with our lives, with our families, and stress, because stress is the word everybody asks, I'm stressed, right? We don't even know why we are stressed. Half of it is just in our head. Half of the stress is just in our head. So if we can just take a minute of our time, 5 minutes of our time, and just breathe, we will be able to understand what is causing the issue, because until you don't know what is causing it, you will never know how to solve it. Then a lot of things come in. Fear. If you're in a relationship that's torturous, fear of judgment, fear of what am I going to do next. The other thing I'd like to touch on is spirituality. I lost my touch with religion, I would say, when I got depressed, because you feel, praying here 5 times a day, I'm fasting 30 days in a month. What is this I'm going through? But this, and I'm happy I went through that because it brought me to be more spiritual and made me understand religion. And this is what we have to chase. We have to chase spirituality. Who are you from within? What connection do you have to the divine, for example? And this brings hope to your life, which every human being needs. If you don't have hope, today, if you're going to have a disease where the doctor will tell you, you've got a month to go, maybe on day 29, you're just going to die because you don't have the hope of living to another month. That's what we need. We need hope. And where you are suffering, you could be suffering a symptom, whereas somebody in your family is at a worse scenario. So how are you going to help them if you don't understand what you are going through? So I would say that first, focus on yourself, get some time for yourself. Either 5 minutes meditation if you're sitting on your prayer mat, or if you're sitting in your religious format, whatever that is, take 5 minutes for yourself. Shut your eyes and breathe, and you will see how you will have self-realization. The other thing is always listen to your sixth sense. I believe that every human being has intuitions. If you, at the end of the day, every creature has intuitions. There's some flowers, if you will touch them, what will they do? They'll close, right? There are some animals, they'll say, oh, if there's an earthquake, they know. Why? Because they can feel the vibrations. They have a very strong sense of touch. We have a sixth sense and we have a brain. Putting those two together is probably what will answer your question to a lot of things of what should I do next? Because that's always every human's query. What should I do next?
Yeah. A question is, however, Sakina, that for many of us, coming to the point of this realization and now trying to find ourselves from within, to find time for ourselves, at least to coming to this point of realization, it is what the problem is, I think, and I need your help in this in this matter. How can this be? How can we overcome this? I mean, knowing that I need a time for myself, I need to look from within, not from myself. I need to spare a space for me, myself. Every time we tend of looking outside help, outside pleasure, outside this, outside comfort, outside in that. How can we look into ourselves? How can we make this intra communication between us and us, I and I?
One thing I'd say is get rid of fear. That is the biggest obstacle between you and you, is fear. I remember being scared of staying in a room alone. I remember being scared of the dark. And because you're scared of being alone, what will you do? Automatically, you'll make sure you have somebody with you. Now, as a child, somebody with you means your mom, means your sibling. As you grow up, somebody with you might be your partner, which might be toxic, but you don't want to get rid of him or her just because you have fear of being alone. You have fear of the dark. You might not leave that job that is so toxic because you have fear you can't get anything better. So my first message is stop fearing. As a human being, you have no limits. You are your own limit. Once you stop fearing, automatically you will see a path. I packed my bags and came to Zanzibar with hardly anything in my pocket. Slept 4 nights in my office space. If I had the fear of doing that, today I wouldn't be sitting here celebrating my book. Every person, as I said, goes through seasons, but the way your winter is going to mold you will tell you how sunny your summer will be.
That's very strong, actually. Very strong. Winter will tell how your summer be, how will your sunny day be. Let's go to winter. I want anything from the book on winter. Recite for us, please. that winter.
I will read you a
Please.
poem that's
Please.
entitled Elements of Us, because my next book is also entitled
Of us.
Elements of Us. All right. Elements of Us. You bear the filth of infidelity, and I'm left cleansing myself, scrubbing off the tales of loyalty, washing off the myth of love, purifying myself from you. You light the fire of disloyalty, and yet I burn night after night, exhausting my wick of faith, held together with your perfidious words of wax. We plowed the seed of love together in the fertile land of trust, yet I stand today yielding dust, swept away in what I thought was a gentle breeze of us. But before my feet could touch the ground, I swirled in the tornado of your deceit.
The element of us. Wow. Oh, thank you very much. Actually, now let's go maybe to the right to the end of our conversation today, and let's talk about the role of us poets in rescuing the people in which we think they have gone through what we have, that they are going through what we have gone through. How do we connect to people? Because in many a time, poetry is about self-establishment, is about self-expression. But then, in which way you as a poet can you connect to the outside world and then help others to see life the way you see it now?
Interesting question, because as a poet, and you're a poet too, you'll know that we don't like people.
That's very true.
We find that people don't understand us.
That's very true.
Yeah. And sometimes we also tend to find people very shallow because the emotions we feel and the way we can express, not everybody can do that. So it's very hard for a poet to be able to connect to somebody. And that's why poetry sometimes is appreciated by just a niche of people. When you hear people speaking of famous poets, and coming from the Asian culture, I have always admired Mirza Ghalib, or the Qawalis of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. But yes, and there's a very small niche, especially in my generation, who would understand and connect to that. So that's a very interesting question. But as a poet, what I would suggest is that collaborate. I collaborated with art, so that people can appreciate the art with poetry. People can hold a pen and journal with poetry. Because I want to show that poetry is not just what you will hear about, words that are very deep. No, you can also have poetry that you just enjoy in your everyday life. But it's good to collaborate with a musician. Make it approachable, because people look at poetry as something very heavy, and yes, it is, but make it approachable. Make it in a format where the layman can also understand. One of the things I used to do, even as growing up, I always used to read my poetry to my sister. My sister is an actuary. She thinks in numbers. So words and the play of words, and I'm talking about the persona, and she does not understand that. But I was very glad when she used to read and tell me, what is this? Because it made me realize that if I do not approach my poetry in a way where a layman can understand, my poetry will only be for poets, which is not right. Everybody should enjoy it. And that is why in my book, I said, there are poems that a poet will enjoy reading. And there are poems that people who do not understand poetry will also understand and love reading. So as a poet, collaborate with people on topics that you want to work on, and you will see the magic in it.
It's actually so deep, as you say. You want to escape this depth as well, but at the same time you go to this you go to it. It is still deep. I mean, it is.
Always have your crew of people that you will speak to. Like, I've mentioned my friend before, Ahmed Taj, and he is a great poet and a great writer. And he is somebody where we sit and we get deep. So I have best of both worlds, because Ahmed is going to sit and tell me that this is too shallow. What are you talking about? And then I have my sister who's going to, this is too deep. So have that balance, because you as a poet, you as a writer, you enjoy being in that emotion where you're reading poetry to each other, where one thinks the poem is probably about a woman on the ocean and the other one is thinking about something completely different. That is the fun of poetry. Every time you will read a poem, you will look at it from a different perspective. So have the best of both worlds so you can reach out to a larger audience. Enjoy your poetry, but also make it a message for people.
For make it collaborative. That is it. Yes. Thank you very much. Actually, it is me who has been so much benefited from this talk, actually. I think more than any other viewer and listener will be viewing and listening to our podcast and our YouTube video. Actually, because living so far from home, living here for 10 years now, every word that you say about this exclusivity and inclusivity in it, this dichotomy that you are every time you are finding too far, too near, too close, too deep, these things are all in one package if you are living so far from home the way that I am. And of course, the healing process, which you talk about in your book, I think it's something that we all need. And I do encourage our listeners and our viewers that get your copy. Grab your copy now of my Little Yellow Book.
And I'd like to tell them where to get a copy from.
Yes,
so if you're in Kenya, then www.nuriakenya.com. Copies are also available in Tanzania. Most of all, the book is on Amazon, both the Kindle version and the paperback version. The Kindle version is $4.99. The paperback version is $11.99. Apart from that, every Thursday at 4:30 East African time, I do an Instagram live session where I invite therapists on, and they talk about different topics. We discuss different topics. It's very interactive. You can ask your questions. We've spoken about identity. We've spoken about depression. We've spoken about parent-child communication, men and mental health. So Sakina_Taki, add me on Instagram, be part of your healing process, be part of everybody else's healing process, get to know what mental health is about. You can go onto my website, www.sakinataki.com. I have a list of counselors there waiting for you to just reach out. So in case you have any questions in terms of mental health, in case you are not feeling okay, you can always reach out to me. I will always be there to listen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sakina. And thank you, dear listener and dear viewer, that you have joined us today here in this program, in this session, in which we talked with Sakina Taki, a poet. The poet now, of course, just recently launched her book, My Little Yellow Book. This adjective. Anyway, thank you very much. And of course, please subscribe, like, share, and just don't hesitate to go to the Instagram to find Sakina Taki and join her with her program. Thank you very much.